Hey, everybody, welcome to a special episode of What Drives Us. If you're wondering who this voice is, well, it's the long lost Danny Cooper. And with me today, I've got the not so long lost, but very much with me today, Russell Frost.
Well, I'm sorry, what was your name again, sir?
It's Daniel something Cooper.
Daniel?
I can't ever remember the middle part. But
with that beard, I keep thinking it's Daniel Boone Cooper.
Yes. I got to go to the mountains of Tennessee and I don't know, fit in with my people.
Yeah, you're not far off, really.
No, I'm pretty close.
So here we are, a special Land Cruiser show.
Special Land Cruiser show. Russell Frost and I happen to drive the same car for a period of time. I may have had mine longer than Russell did. And for once, we're actually on the same coast, though not anywhere close to one another still. Yeah. So we both were driving the Land Cruiser. I had one for 2 weeks while on a family vacation out in Seattle.
Wow.
And so, yeah, Toyota was nice enough to get me one for, I guess, about 10 days. Russell, how long did you have yours?
I had mine for a week.
A week.
Yeah, and just to lay this out at the beginning, I was sick as a dog for 6 of those 7 days. And it wasn't until the 7th day that I actually got to drive the vehicle.
Very biblical.
I'm sorry?
Very, very biblical.
Very biblical. Thank you. I'm nothing if not
biblical. He drove the car.
Yeah, on the 7th day he drove. I like that. Out to the desert too. I mean, how appropriate was that? Yeah. So yeah, I literally did almost all my driving in one day, which led to its own set of observations. But
okay. So I did thousands of miles of driving in mine over 10 days on a family vacation. And so my angle with the Land Cruiser Drive is more of a family situation. So like, as everyone probably knows, I am the founder of Prius Chat, and Toyota's kind of abandoning the idea of making a Prius that's big enough for a family larger than 3 or 4. Now that they've stopped production of the Prius V for the US market. If you have a family of 5, especially a family of 5 kids my age, 7, 4, 2, I've got 3 car seats that have to fit across in one row. And so it's actually extremely difficult to find a vehicle that can do that due to the size of car seats these days. And so you certainly cannot do it in a Prius. And so my angle is kind of like a family of 5 can't take a Prius on a family of 5 with kids as young as mine can't take a Prius on an extended family vacation like I did. What's the next best option? And so I'm not sure if the Land Cruiser is the next best option, but that is kind of my angle of our discussion today. You've got a different angle.
Well, no, and I'm fascinated that like that jump between like the sadly lamented, almost gone now Prius V to the Land Cruiser. You know what I mean? It's
very
like
similar.
Yeah, I need a Volkswagen or a Maybach. I don't know what the difference is. Yeah, I mean, obviously from my angle, I don't have a family. I don't have kids. For me, it was driving to work. It was driving, down to San Diego for a meeting one day. So a little bit of freeway travel. And then it was my fun day. And my fun day was me driving over the mountains and into the desert and getting the car really, really dirty. Rather fun, entertainingly dirty. And then driving home all in one day. So, yeah, I really looked at it from just the perspective of I'm this person who drives this car. I don't necessarily need this size. I don't have any needs that required it. I just wanted to check it out and experience it. How's that for coy?
That's pretty coy.
Thank you.
Pretty, yeah.
So I have to ask, I'm sorry, I have to ask, you drove thousands of miles. I only drove about, I don't know. I didn't drive that much, and I ended up putting a decent amount of fuel into the car.
A very nice way of saying that.
A decent amount of premium fuel.
Yeah.
Into the vehicle.
You can wean it off. You can wean it on the regular, but we won't talk about that today.
I, of course, used high quality premium as I'm supposed to do.
I believe I did for the most part as well. Of course. Of course. I'm trying to find exactly how much total mileage I put on the vehicle.
Oh, well, let's just say that EPA says you're going to get 13 city, 18 highway for an average of 15 MPG in the Land Cruiser.
So, and this is kind of the interesting thing is that I put right about 1,000 miles on the car.
Wow.
Because we weren't driving every day, but we were in Seattle. We drove down to Portland and back, and we did some trips around the area. So at any rate, what's funny about that is that I exceeded the EPA MPG on this vehicle with 5 people and 7 pieces of luggage plus backpacks plus the weight of the car seats, etc. I exceeded the EPA MPG, and that's on an overall task. That's I didn't just do well on the interstate and then did very poorly in the city. That's kind of my median was 18.6.
Wow.
While I was gone. And so a lot of people are going to start listening to this and be like, well, this is so stupid. This is a really stupid topic. Because if you're looking to go into a more fuel efficient vehicle that can carry lots of people, you're going to go for the minivan,
the
right?
Pacifica plug-in.
Well, the Pacifica would be fantastic, but let's say that you're actually getting a fairly mainstream and well-selling vehicle like an Odyssey, an Odyssey or a Sienna. Okay, right. Those are the 2 main players. Dodge has their thing, and Chrysler's coming up with the Pacifica, but most people are going to look into the Sienna and the Odyssey. Now, the Odyssey, you can get 28 miles to the gallon on the interstate in the Odyssey, supposedly. You can get like 25, I think, in the Sienna. But right out this window, I've got an Odyssey. You know what the MPG is on the Odyssey right now? 17.1. Okay? That's about a 50-50 mix of city and interstate driving. The thing does not get typically what it says it's going to get. And so that made me impressed with the Land Cruiser, that I was actually able to exceed the EPA MPG number on it. Now, probably because I put, like I was supposed to, I put premium fuel in it all the time. Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Allegedly.
But yeah, so I actually ended up coming out impressed with the 18.2 MPG or 18.6 MPG that I ended up with.
I would have to say I had a similar experience. In my city highway driving, I easily beat the 18, and I 19 in the low 20s. But I was driving fairly carefully. I was trying not to use a lot of fuel. I wasn't hypermiling, because anyone who knows me knows that's not me. But nonetheless, I did very well. But what really blew me away, again, was my last day. I drove a couple of 100 miles that day. I went from Escondido, which is inland San Diego County, up over the mountains, the Laguna Mountains, 5,000 feet, back down the Laguna Mountains, below sea level, into the Anza Borrego Desert, tooled around off-road, driving up in hills and canyons and whatnot, then drove back up over those 5,000-foot mountains and came back 14.7.
Oh, that's not bad for being a play day.
14.7, and it's all like, I mean, except for the downhill segments, it's the worst possible, like uphill mountain switchbacks.
Yeah.
Driving in the sand. I was blown away by 14.7. Again, in a vehicle that weighs, curb weight's what, like 7,500 pounds, I think? I want to say right around there.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Nearly 8 tons or 4 tons.
It's got a curb weight of 6,000 pounds.
Is it? Oh, is that all? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you fat. I'm sorry.
It feels fat though, doesn't it?
Oh, curb weight of 58. Okay. Gross vehicle weight 7385. So.
You know what's interesting though about that car is that you look at it, you stand next to it. Like there's a photo of me and my family that and all the stuff that we brought with us that we'll throw into this video, and you stand next to this vehicle and it is large. Okay, it is larger than a standard minivan, at least as far as the way it stands. And but when you're actually driving it down the road, like the best word I could come up with while I was driving down the interstate, I turned to Nicole, my wife, and I said, "This thing just kind of glides. Like it doesn't feel like it's taking a lot of effort for it to drive down the interstate at all. Like you aren't. This thing didn't huff and puff at all, unless it was looking at a gas station."
And every time it drove by a gas station, went, "Daddy, please."
Yeah. Oh, please, candy.
Could I have some more candy? I mean, same exact thing, except again, under much more trying circumstances. I'd been sick. I still was, if you watch my Land Cruiser video diary, which please, you know what, if you have half an hour to kill, go ahead and watch it. But otherwise you can, I'm going to summarize it all here. I was shocked that I wasn't just totally beaten down with exhaustion. Okay. Because again, up the mountains, down the mountains, all tight switchbacks. Then I'm out in the desert, driving up and down hills and stuff. Was I fatigued? Was I exhausted? Was I tired of sitting in that chair? Oh, hell no. Yeah. It was a really staggeringly pleasant drive the whole time. And I mean, the mountain switchback thing is what really blows me away. I mean, again, we're talking about a vehicle that weighs a lot. It's big and it's tall, and you're sitting up there a lot. But man, I'm cutting the corners. I'm not cutting the corners, but in a metaphorical sense, I'm cutting the corners in this thing, and it's driving like a much, much smaller car. I have no idea how they do it. I just don't.
They put $85,000 worth of engineering into the car, and about 50 years of legacy into the Land Cruiser nameplate. That's part of how they do it.
Right. And
that's actually one thing that I wanted to talk about, was that this year, the 2018 Land Cruiser, it would be a nice way of saying this is a aging vehicle. This is a platform. This is the 200 series Land Cruiser. It has been out for a good long while now.
Nearly, 60 years, nearly.
Well, but I mean, this specific body we drove has been out for, I think, since 07. So yeah, they don't come out with new generations of Land Cruisers very often. But what struck me, and what I was kind of expecting, was that it would be a vehicle that I would sit down in, and it would be like, okay, this feels like it was, this would have been really well spec'd for 2014, 2012, something like that. But when I actually got in, I was actually very pleased and surprised at how modern it was for 2018. You're still dealing with Toyota's Intune stack, which stinks on some levels, is good on some levels, but they've done a really good job of updating the parts of the body that they can update without having to go through a full refresh, with LED lighting, heated and ventilated seats, all the stuff that you kind of expect out of an $85,000 car is in this car. Rear, did yours have the giant screens on the backside of the front seats?
I did, yes. My trim was 87 as well.
So ironically, you have to have the remote to be able to turn those screens on and do anything with them.
I didn't know that.
And my oldest daughter was extremely upset when we could not find the remote anywhere. So those screens were completely pointless to us the entire trip.
Oh my!
That part of it kind of stunk. But at any rate, this is an older platform that this vehicle sits on, but it still it felt very fresh, and then that's the thing with the Land Cruiser lineup, is that you can sit in like a vehicle that was from the 80s, and you get into it, and if it's been taken care of, it feels like a modern SUV, because it basically created the modern SUV style.
Yeah. So one sort of digression. What did you think of the resolution of the screen?
I mean, I don't remember it being a problem, but it's not as good as my i3.
Yeah, I just, the one thing that shocked me was I thought the resolution in the center screen was just really kind of mediocre. And I was sort of surprised that in this car at that level that the screen wouldn't have been updated. Now, that happens sometimes. We've seen in different cycles of development how certain features are older than another car coming out the same year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem with this also is that for cost savings, they've got to use probably a lot of the same stuff that goes into the Sienna, the Highlander, and the Sequoia type of lineup.
Right.
And they can't take stuff out of the Lexus lineup because there is a Lexus cousin to this vehicle, the LX 570. So they're saving all their goodies for that. However, for a Toyota, this is a very well spec'd out car. This is actually the first Toyota I think I've ever driven with a heated steering wheel, which was fantastic. when it's snowing in northern Washington, the heated steering wheel is very nice to have.
Nice.
It baffles me how there's not a heated steering wheel on every single EV, but that's another discussion for another time.
What do you mean, electricity? Come on, man.
I'm just saying, if you want to save electricity,
right. Heated seats and heated steering wheel is the way to do it. Yeah.
Where people are actually touching materials, make it heated.
Right. No. I mean, when what was it? I was driving. It was the Soul. The Soul EV. I follow one of the Soul EV groups and was reading, and they were like, if you want to get max your mileage, you turn off the climate control completely and you use the heated and ventilated seats or the steering wheel heater if you want. And it made total sense. Now, heated seats in San Diego, not so important, really.
Not a requirement.
Yeah, not really. But the ventilated seats were awesome, and it certainly helps. But I'm by going off topic into another vehicle. I think it's interesting. Again, in the diary that I was talking about, I kind of rambled on about how the interior was kind of Spartan, and yet it was very nicely done. There's no way you would mistake the interior of this vehicle for a Lexus, but by no means was it downscale. It was a very interesting sort of combination of very utilitarian, yet elegantly made, beautifully executed, and certainly visually pleasant. So yeah, I would.
Yeah, I don't know what your colors.
I had a brown interior and a silver exterior.
Okay, so I don't know if they all come with the brown interior, but first of all, the brown interior was gorgeous. It's like a camel color.
I love that color leather. I'm sorry, that tobacco-ish kind of.
Yeah, good way to put it. This is a great vehicle not to have light colored leather in. Yeah. And I think it would actually really kind of turn off the idea of what you're driving if you had a light colored leather in this car. Maybe they offer it in the Lexus, but I hope that they don't even offer it anywhere across the Land Cruiser. I will say one thing, and doing a little bit of research before and after I drove the car, and actually I went into a Lexus dealership and was talking to somebody in there too. But one thing that I noticed that I don't like about this generation of Land Cruiser versus previous generations is that the third row seats can't come up. They only fold up to the sides. And that's great if what you're carrying is confined to the space that leaves you with those seats being up on the side. But it would provide so much more space if you could pull out those rear seats completely. I've got I've got a GIF that we'll include in the video here of me loading luggage into the vehicle, and we had 7 checked bags that we had total, and it all fit in the back with a double stroller. It all fit back there, but boy, it would have been a whole lot easier if we had been able to take out those rear 2 seats that weren't being used.
Yeah.
And actually I went into a Lexus dealership a couple weeks ago and was talking to somebody in there, and I'm assuming this is the case with the next Land Cruiser as well, but there's going to be an option to buy it without the rear seats completely.
Right. A 2 or 3 row, because the 570 offers that. Okay.
Yeah. And so in previous generations of the Land Cruiser, you could just lift the handle, pop it, and you can pull the seat completely out. And you can put them in your garage and have the entire backspace available to you. In this current version of Land Cruiser, they are built into the car more so than they have in previous generations.
I didn't know that, Danny Cooper.
And now you know.
You've had more time in the Land Cruiser than I've had.
Well, I used it in different ways, and so that's we both approach the car in different ways. And so for me, from a family perspective, I'm looking to get the most amount of space, using space most efficiently, and having those two seats that were never going to be used during our trip back there was a complete waste of space, because even when it's not like we were going to be able to carry other family members that we were meeting up with out in Washington, we weren't going to be able to put them into the back of the Land Cruiser because we always had this stupid double stroller with us that we had to put in the back anyway. So,
okay, so random feature discussion. Refrigerated center console.
Oh, complete waste.
It kept my water nice and cool in the desert.
Did it?
Yeah, it did, actually.
Well,
I mean, it works okay.
Here's the thing, though. You have to be running the air conditioning to get it to turn on, to get it to work. And where I was, it was like highs were sometimes approaching 50, but usually in the 40s. And so we weren't using the air conditioning much. So it was a complete waste. And what sucked is that it's like a cooler, so it's got it's thicker around the edges than a normal center console storage space would be. And so you're losing, like, what would you say, at least an inch and a half?
At least. Yeah. And it's sort of an odd shape. It's kind of tall and skinny, but it's not quite tall enough for like a tall water bottle.
Exactly. You can't even fit like a 20-ounce water bottle in it.
Right. You have to kind of can it over. I mean, and these are little piddling things, but again, if you own this vehicle, if you've dropped 87 grand on it, those little things over time are, the reason why divorces happen sometimes. So,
I can give my conclusion from a family perspective. I haven't had a chance to drive the Pacifica yet. FCA. I've heard it. Every owner I've bumped into has loved the car. I'd love to have a chance to drive it sometime. One of the big problems with the Pacifica that I actually do have for my specific family situation is that you can't get 3 seats across in the middle row. It's only 2 captain chairs.
Somebody's in the back.
Yeah, so it kind of eliminates it for us right now. But anyway, it just felt like the Land Cruiser is not a vehicle that you would cross shop looking at, trying to decide to go from a Prius to the next thing up. I don't think Land Cruiser is going to make your list. On the flip side, I think Sequoia might. Sequoia is actually a little bit larger than the Land Cruiser, I believe. Is a little bit more family oriented. I actually end up seeing a lot of those in this area. So if you wanted to go from a Prius style vehicle and you didn't want to go minivan, it feels like Sequoia and Highlander are probably the next level up that you would look at on the Toyota lineup. The Land Cruiser, it's like, if you want to do yourself I don't know, if you want to do something for yourself and you just want to own like a piece of automotive history, buy the Land Cruiser, because I was extremely impressed with how it drove on a daily basis when you're not using it as a 4x4 vehicle. And obviously, if you watch Russell's diary, you'll see that the Land Cruiser is a highly capable 4x4 vehicle. So it really can do both things. So if you're the type of family that is getting into camping as your family's getting larger and older, then the Land Cruiser might be the choice for you. There's a lot of third-party stuff out there. You can even put a tent on top of the damn thing.
Sweet.
And having a tent that extends over and creates a canopy and all this stuff. There's amazing stuff that's out there for the Land Cruiser that you probably can't find for the Sequoia and the Highlander type of vehicle. This vehicle does things that let's talk about a car that's in a similar price range, theoretically, the Model X. This car does things that the Model X, let's just flat out say, it can't do.
Yeah.
Can never do. And this car is also going to last for 300,000 miles. And we don't know anything about the reliability of the Model X line yet.
It's interesting. We did a thing on What Drives Us, I want to say a couple of months ago, about this wonderfully, delightfully crazy Finnish guy who has a Model X and took it off-road into the forest in midwinter and just, I don't want to say destroyed it, but he beat the living hell out of this vehicle.
About to say, wasn't it about the same shape as that Model 3 that went on the nationwide tour?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little worse. Maybe a little worse. But I mean, and you know what? Cheers to him for doing it, because that's totally cool. But yeah, you know what? I mean, given my experience in the Land Cruiser, if somebody said, hey, you're going to go out to the desert and go off-roading for a day, and fuel or whatever wasn't an issue, right? You want a Model X or do you want the Land Cruiser? Land Cruiser. Land Cruiser, because I honestly feel like you could roll this thing and then just roll it back over and go. You know what I mean?
Get a group of people and push it back over.
Push it back over and go. Everything about it feels indestructible.
Yes.
Very solid. It's so solid. It's so well executed. There's no rattling. There's no bumpy things. You're driving through. I'm driving up, literally up the side of a hill, up a mountain, and it's still stone quiet in the car.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. One of the things that blew me away was how quiet the interior is, how pleasant that is. That even though it's essentially a truck, Toyota has taken the time and trouble to make it a super pleasant interior to be in. And I love that. You know what? If you want to hear it, open the sunroof, roll on the windows. Yeah, hear everything, you know? But if you don't want to, and again, in a vehicle at this price, it's not unimaginable that maybe you want to be isolated from things a little bit. It's nice that the cabin is that well insulated.
In the rare instances when all three children were asleep, I got to enjoy some of that silence as well.
When you weren't enjoying. Yeah, I got nothing.
Enjoying, sure, yes. Enjoying the sound of my three children.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. Of course you enjoy the sound of your three children.
Oh, of course.
Of course. Danny Cooper.
Love them.
You're little angels. I've seen them. They're all little angels.
Yeah.
It's an interesting sort of contradiction, you know? And one of the things that I was thinking about driving home was like, is this car like Vegas? And I'm going to make like sort of a weird analogy, which may or may not, you know, but there was a time when Vegas was like smoking and drinking and, you know, gambling and, you know, the Rat Pack and all of that. And then Vegas in the 80s got kind of family friendly. And it was sort of warm and fuzzy Vegas. It was Circus and Excalibur Vegas. It was like, bring the family. There's lots of kid stuff to do. And that sort of didn't really work out well in the long term, because Vegas and family, I mean, you know, mom and dad want to go gamble, you know, and do crazy things in a hotel room made of mirrors. They don't want to bring the family to Vegas, you know? So where I'm going with this is, you know, it's this luxury cabin on this amazing mechanical platform that is almost 60 years old, that is tried and proven to be reliable and you know, go anywhere. Yet here you are in this comfortable seat with this beautiful steering, and the suspension is outstanding. I mean, even under the worst conditions, you're not bouncing. And I've been in old Land Cruisers. That's why. So like, one of my good friends used to have an old, we called it the Land Basher, and we would go off road and climb hills and stuff around Escondido. And I mean, I remember like getting smacked up against the side of the thing and my head hitting the roof. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. It was hardly comfortable.
Yeah. There's a reason the Land Cruiser has gone up in price by about 50% over the last 25 years.
Right.
They've definitely, they're angling for the luxury market that is willing to pay for the Land Cruiser nameplate instead of going to a Lexus and really the Lexus LX 570 is kind of the only equivalent that you get on the luxury side of a car that has these capabilities. Unless I'm just not thinking. I mean, obviously, you got Land Rover. That's a classic nameplate as well. But
one of the most poorly built vehicles on the planet.
Right, but capability wise, it's got it. Right. It's got the cred. Sure. Jaguar, no. Porsche, no.
Maybe Porsche.
Audi, no. I mean, the Q7 is a people hauler.
Yeah.
BMW, no.
Right. What? I mean, where else do you go? I mean, again, you buy. Let's be realistic. People buy Land Rover for the nameplate, right? And
right.
Arguably, and this is another thing, a point that I made in the diary is that, so the sad part about your trip is you did way more miles than I did. You spent a lot more time in the vehicle than I did, but you didn't get to have any fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where this car really sings, where it really just delivers, is go out in the dirt, climb a mountain, slide around in the sand, and you'll be like, oh yeah.
So some of the saddest parts of the trip for me were the fact that we were right next to the Olympic mountains. Oh, yeah. And so we got to drive through Olympic National Forest, which is some of the video that I've sent you. We got to drive through there. Gorgeous, wonderful driving, but it's all pavement. It's all pavement. But one of my plans was to go up to Olympic National Park. And there is a road up there that it's like it was borderline whether they were going to allow anyone on it or not. But if they were going to allow anyone on it, it was going to be the MF and Land Cruiser, right, buddy? And so I was planning on having a lot of fun in the snow up there, but I didn't end up being able to have it happen.
I'm disappointed you didn't want to take your small children into potential danger.
Yeah, it was going to have to be by myself.
Yeah,
but
I mean, sure, I'm out there tooling around the desert. I'm just one guy. They'll find my bones. Who cares? But you not wanting to risk your children in the name of auto research, Danny Cooper. I'm disappointed in you, sir.
I have questionable motives sometimes.
Yeah, I guess you like your children more than you like doing reviews. So I don't know. Where else do we go after that? We've talked about pricing. We've talked about MPG. For those of you who are looking for stats, it's a 381 horsepower, 5.7 liter motor, 8-speed auto transmission. There's all kinds of other ways it's full-time all-wheel drive. And you can delink that. There are, of course, low speeds as well, so that to get you out of any sort of potential trouble that you might drive in. This is a fully capable all-wheel drive off-road vehicle. Despite its elegant appearance, it could be painted olive drab and have big knobby tires on it too. I mean, it still retains its original sort of 50s heritage as like the Jeep you see driving all across the Serengeti. That's always the way I think of the Land Cruiser. Yeah. Like those old documentaries when I was a kid of like somebody blazing across the plains of Africa, going through a stream and, driving up hills and stuff like that. And I think this car honors and respects all of that heritage very much better than, please, let's be realistic, any of those silly Land Rovers. Range Rovers. And please send me your email. Please.
I was about to say the Brits are really going to get mad at us.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, you know what? They're not going to sponsor the show. I'm so sad. And those of you who own Range Rovers and Land Rovers, please tell me what your repair bills are. Okay. In any email, I just want to know how much time it's spent in the shop.
Did you get to use the crawl or creep mode?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. So you might be able to explain it better than I can, but this is basically like cruise control for off-roading, right?
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, sort of. It's right. It's one way of controlling the way the vehicle accelerates under difficult conditions. Did I just say what you said in different words? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, I didn't, one of the things I said in the diary and and in the video, like there's no video of me like sailing through the air or climbing up a vertical wall or, doing anything really crazy. And you know what? Guess what? It's an $87,000 vehicle, and I wasn't going to bury it up to the fenders in sand or roll it over on a mountain on a Tuesday by myself out in the middle of the desert. Okay. And on a Tuesday morning in the Anza-Borrego Desert, you are by definition by yourself. So, it's just, I did drive it and I did beat it up pretty well, but it wasn't a destruction test. It was a performance test.
That's well put.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And again, the super impressive thing about this is how well it does both. With all the features, the off-road features and the transmission features that the Land Cruiser has, how well it handles difficult situations off-road and how well it handles the highway. How is that even possible?
Yeah. And I took it into the city. I drove in downtown Portland quite a bit with it. And
really?
Yeah, I didn't wreck into anything. I'm very impressed to say. I did have to look up at the caution, only 8 feet or whatever, things as you're going into a parking garage. I did kind of watch those as I'm driving under them to see if they start swaying as they hit the roof rack.
I love the 360 video view. That was
cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it has all of Toyota's latest features. Dynamic Cruise, of course, which is one of my favorite features in any vehicle ever because I live in Southern California where traffic is ubiquitous.
Well, that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier, was it's got so many of these features that are in modern Toyotas that almost all the time Toyota leaves out of cars that are due for a new generation soon. And they'll just leave it out for 2 or 3 years, right? And they won't work on implementing all this technology into those vehicles. This car is due for a new generation in the next couple of years. But because it's a Land Cruiser, they can let it, continue out for much longer than they do a standard vehicle that Toyota offers. But they're still working. They're actually putting effort into this vehicle to put the TSSP system into it, to put that 360 video camera system into it. All these things that actually make this car drivable in an urban setting. Believe me, I needed those parking sensors quite a bit. And I didn't find them until halfway through my trip, but once I found them, they were very handy.
Yeah. I mean, it is an amazingly versatile vehicle. And it almost feels silly to say, I mean, let's be realistic, right? Most people buy this thing. It never sees dirt.
Right. It's what they call them, mall cruisers, right?
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I think they call them mall cruisers when you're just using them in suburban areas.
Well, yeah, couch cruiser. I have no idea, but yeah, but it does both so well, and that's the sad part is that if you never take this thing off road, you're missing so much of this vehicle. Which is to say, it's a perfect road. It's a wonderful car to drive on the asphalt full time. Nothing wrong with that, but for God's sakes, get out in the dirt once in a while, please. Do yourself a favor.
Well, and it's a good reminder that there are vehicles out there that have their purpose that don't get great gas mileage, and we can't vilify them all because they don't fit into what our desires are for vehicles. Russell, both you and I love electric vehicles. Anything that plugs in, we are very attracted to. Super. On a almost sexual level.
That might be you more than me.
Oh, that's just me. Okay,
that's just you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love driving my little i3 for the most part when it's not, being too temperamental on me. But there is a place for these vehicles, and we have to remember that. And this is like the granddaddy of vehicles built with a purpose. So I think that's something we need to remember.
Yeah. I mean, and towing ability. This vehicle has amazing towing ability. Another reason why it's popular is that you can tow a lot of I should look it up, right? What are the towing specs?
7,500.
Is that what it is?
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's something crazy. Towing capacity, 8,100 pounds.
80. Wow.
8,100 pounds is what you can tow with this thing. Now, I have no idea what you have that weighs 8,100 pounds, but again, like this is a hauler. This is a truck that's does a lot more than, the average truck. If I lived out in the desert, this would be the vehicle that I'd want to have, or up in the mountains, perhaps, or something like that. If I lived in San Francisco, maybe not so much. Parking it might not be that much fun, but that's a very specialized, not everybody lives in a super urban environment. So yeah, you're right. And I was actually blown away with 14.7 on my fun day, because I thought that was very good mileage. I've gotten lower mileage on other vehicles, not under much better conditions. And those vehicles will remain nameless.
18.6. Let me just say it again. Better than my Odyssey is getting right now.
What was more fun to drive?
Definitely the Land Cruiser. Yeah.
Oh, everyone at Honda just went, oh.
Yeah, well. Even Nicole really liked it. She liked it driving in it a lot. She never drove it, but she liked riding it quite a bit. The only thing she didn't care for was, at first, she didn't really like the length it took to get the baby into the rear facing car seat. But the girls were able to jump up onto the side step and climb in pretty easily. But yeah, we really enjoyed our time with it, and I think there's a reason that these vehicles stay on the road as long as they do, last as long as they do, and get used for the things that they get used for. And so it was wonderful to have the opportunity to kind of get that firsthand experience with it. I wish I'd been able to take it into the Olympic National Park, but next time, right? Next time. There is no next time. You get the car once.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh no. I'm just curious, if somebody came to you and magically said, okay, give me your Odyssey, you can have this Land Cruiser. Value aside, would you do it?
No. I mean, for me, could we have both?
No. You get one.
I got to keep the van right now.
And I'm gonna guess that the big difference there is loading car seats.
Mostly loading car seats. There's a little bit more room in the second row,
right
between the rear, the front, the driver and the passenger seat, and kind of where the middle row seats begins. And for when you're carrying stuff like wipes and diapers, and you need space to like change diapers on on the back seat of the car, or on the back floorboard of the car.
You do that?
Oh yeah. On the third kid, you don't care. You'll just change a diaper wherever.
I am so, yeah. Okay. We can just tell who's not a dad.
But for those reasons, and for the fact that you can get those rear seats, that third row seat out, makes the van a little bit of a better situation for me right now. But if it was our secondary car, I'd be all over it.
Yeah. I mean, you could have fun. There's places to go drive there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it were just a secondary vehicle that we could take out for camping and that kind of stuff, I'd be all over it. Yeah, right. For sure. But day to day, I think the minivan still works for people it's in my very specific situation. Right.
I have 3 small children.
Yeah. And that's what it's like one of my things lately with car reviewers in general is that if you were to give the profile of the standard car reviewer that we come across at some of these press events, wouldn't you probably say that they are either single or married with no children, constantly traveling? Actually, the cars that they own are actually older vehicles.
No argument so far.
Yeah, and so anyway, those qualities don't really lead to a grounded perception of what certain people need certain cars for sometimes.
I would, with no disrespect meant towards any of our comrades in the car media business, in the automotive media business. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an odd group. I mean, it's much more narrow than even you're picturing, I think, in some ways. I mean, just that experience, there's a lot of young and old, male petrol heads, you know, that like, I got a 71 Charger at home or something, you know, and
Right.
and that to them is that was the pinnacle of American car development. And it's like, maybe it was, I guess, in a sense, but you know, when that sort of, and again, you know, we come from a different place where hybrids and electric vehicles and alt fuel vehicles are sort of our raison d'etre. You know, but I do think we make a conscious effort to try and broaden that out. I mean, you're a guy with 3 kids. I'm a single guy-ish, you know, with no kids, but I think we try and vary that experience up. That's a reasonable criticism, Cooper.
Well, and I'm not trying to be critical as much as I'm just trying to say that people try to put their review of a specific vehicle to be within their kind of specific viewpoint of the world. And so this is my specific perception of this vehicle based on my specific situation at this specific point in time. You know, in 5-6 years, my kids aren't going to be in car seats anymore. And you know, the world is my oyster as far as what kind of cars I'll be able to drive. So, you know, talk to me then, like Fusco, you know, Fusco can drive a Model S and a Model X now. And I bet neither of those vehicles would work for my situation at this current time. And there are people that stretch their lives in certain different ways to make those things work, but it doesn't work for me. Anyway, should we wrap up?
I think we should, probably. I mean, any other final parting shots on the Land Cruiser?
I was surprised with how much I actually ended up enjoying driving the car for the extended period that I ended up driving it. I thought it was going to become a real literal weight around my leg to be dragging along with me, because I thought that, you know, the only reason I'm talking about how often you had to go to the gas station was because it's got a relatively small tank, gas tank in it for as large of a vehicle as it is. So you're only getting maybe 350 miles
at most. Yeah, it's a 24-gallon tank. So
yeah, so you know, I was getting 360 maybe at the most. So that was, you know, the biggest downside of it to me was that I can drive 450 in my minivan, but 350 in the Land Cruiser. And the Land Cruiser is not the type of car that like you want to get in the middle of a deserted area with no utilities available to you, and you know, not have anything close by, because it could be 18, but then you get yourself into a certain situation and you're only getting 12, and then all of a sudden the gas is evaporating on you.
Right. And this is not a vehicle you're going to push.
Yeah, you're not far, and not anywhere but downhill.
Yeah. And that's not pushing. That's something else.
But I was impressed with the experience that I had in the car. Surprisingly so. When I asked Toyota, when I pitched this idea to Toyota as like the next car that a Prius owner could go to and, you know, get some time in that car to see how it would work for a family of 5 going on vacation for an extended period of time, and they come back to me and like, hey, we can get you a Land Cruiser. It's like, whoa.
Right?
Not really what I was anticipating, going from, you know, the 42 mpg of a Prius V to 18 to 13 of a Land Cruiser, but I ended up enjoying it quite a bit.
So, you know, I'm at my heart, I'm a motorcycle guy, which means, you know, as soon as I get in a steel box, I don't get claustrophobic, but I get a little claustrophobic. I tend to like smaller cars, though, oddly enough. You know, I don't like bigger boats, as it were, because where I come from, when I was a kid, bigger cars were all boats. They were all horrible oversteer, terrible suspension. They were, you know, sound the horn burp, burp, as it goes around a corner. You know, I mean, I totally loved this car, and I did not expect to. I expected that I would enjoy off-roading, but the rest of it would horrify me. The gas consumption and the size and all of that. This thing drives like a car half its size. I enjoyed driving mountain switchbacks. I enjoyed it. It wasn't fatiguing. I enjoyed driving off-road. It uses a lot of fuel. If you're going to spend 87 grand on a car, you probably don't care about the price of premium. Can I just throw that out there. And if you do, maybe downscale a little bit, Highlander hybrid, just suggesting, not quite the same thing, but but I mean, damn, is this car fun? It's a joy to drive. And it's fun. It has so much potential fun. If you lived in an area where you could go camping and go off-road and do that stuff regularly, wow, what an amazing vehicle to own and have, and to be able to use. I really expected not to like this car, and maybe it's just the triumph of low expectations. I don't think so, though, because I've been doing this car thing for a while now, and it still takes a certain level of quality to impress me, or a certain amount of well-executed features to impress me. And the Land Cruiser delivered in every particular. You know what? I can whine about the cooler or about the resolution on the touchscreen. These are all things that could be fixed very, very simply. So none of those is a bad thing. So I love the car. Yeah, I didn't expect to. I think we've said it all then.
I think so. If you want to hear more of Russell's thoughts on the subject, check out the What Drives Us YouTube page and check out his diary, which very interesting. Very interesting stuff if you want to check that out and learn a little bit more of the car. There's actually another video that I will try to put up in a corner or something somewhere on this video that I watched recently that was a fantastic primer on the history of the Land Cruiser. And it was just done, and it was done by a guy who was at the Land Cruiser Museum. So definitely worth watching as kind of an addendum to our review here if you're interested in the Land Cruiser.
I'm sorry, did you say Land Cruiser Museum?
Land Cruiser Museum.
I had no idea.
Yeah, didn't either.
I had no idea. Wow.
I forget where it is. It was somewhere weird. Utah?
I'm thinking Texas. I don't know why. But yeah. No. That's incredible.
Well, thanks for watching. You can check out the What Drives Us show every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Pacific. It's live every week. You can also watch it on YouTube after it's recorded if you don't get the chance to check it out live. Feel free to go back and check out all of Russell's reviews. He's been doing some great work, and I'm sorry I haven't been on the show to express that, but I've been really impressed with the amount of stuff and the quality of stuff that he's been putting out recently. So please do go check out some of his work. That's it for me. This is Danny Cooper from PriusChat.com.
Thanks, Cooper.
Put in the envelope. Send it on.
About time. So as Danny said, Facebook.com /What Drives Us on social media. You can find us there, Facebook.com /What Drives Us. Oddly enough, we're at Twitter @What Drives Us. We're on Instagram @What Drives Us Show. No spaces, no underscores, @What Drives Us Show. That's one way to check in with me and find out what I'm driving this week. Or if I'm not driving anything, it's probably kind of quiet. And of course, the big one, as Annie mentioned, YouTube, where you're probably watching this right now, youtube.com /What Drives Us. As always, my impassioned plea, please, please, please subscribe to the channel. Those numbers help us enormously. It doesn't cost you anything. And well, that's one way to support the show without coughing up any cash, right?
So how many times can I subscribe? Because I'd love to do that instead of providing any cash.
So did I admit this morning that I'm not even subscribed to my own channel?
You did. We were not recording the time, but
we were not recording. So I've admitted it in the show. I'm going to go do that after the show. Our numbers will bump up by 1, and that will be me. So yeah, go do that, please.
You go do that, and I'm going to go talk to my wife about why she's only getting 17 miles to the gallon in the Odyssey.
Well, you know why. She takes corners on 2 wheels, man. I've driven with she's amazing.
It's a skateboard, man.
I love her for that. Are you kidding me? You don't want her to drive like an old lady, Anyway, tune in next week and find out
what drives us. Bong. Tick, tick, tick.